Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you all are doing well out there. Make sure you join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Get the inside scoop on all things BYU sports that I'm hearing every single day. And the best part is you get 2 full weeks of a free trial before you're charged a single penny. It's just $5 a month beyond that to be a part of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. But I encourage you guys, if you're interested, to join today. The link is in the show notes below, or reach out to us and we'll get you squared away. All right, before we go on today's show, let's talk about BYU football and the outcomes of the NFL draft. Now, for the first time since I believe 2021, BYU did not have a player hear their name called in the draft. And that was a bit of a bummer because I expected guys like a Kalani Sitake or a Tyler Batty to be picked in that 6th or 7th round range. It really felt like those two guys deserved that. But following the draft, 8 former Cougars got opportunities in the professional ranks. Tyler Batty signed a free agent deal with the Minnesota Vikings. Blake Mangelson is also going to Minnesota, but he is going to a mini camp invite, the rookie mini camps. They're like a 3-day camp, and I think it's either this weekend or next weekend. You go out there and show what you're capable of and see if you get picked up there. Then you also saw Jacob Robinson get a deal with my San Francisco 49ers. So, hey, J-Rob, do me proud and show out with the Niners. And then Mark Collins, also a cornerback for BYU, is going to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers as a free agent signing in the CFL. So he is the one that's not linked up with an NFL team. He's actually headed north of the border to play in the Canadian Football League. So congratulations to him. Now, those are the defensive players. Once again, Batty and Mangelson to Minnesota, Jacob Robinson to San Francisco, and Mark Collins to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. On offense, Kalani Sitake inked a deal with the Cincinnati Bengals. Then Braden Keim, who received honorable mention all Big 12 honors, is a minicamp invite to both the Kansas City Chiefs and the Chicago Bears. He'll have 2 opportunities to go out there and show what he's capable of. Then Connor Pay is going to Las Vegas, our good friend Connor. He'll be there with the Raiders for a minicamp invite there. And then Darius Lassiter, he is going to go to a minicamp with the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you're tallying it at home, it's 3 free agent deals, 4 minicamp invites, and 1 CFL free agent deal. All 8 of these guys, I hope, make good on the opportunity they have in front of them, especially a guy like Connor Pay. He has been so good to this podcast, and I'll be rooting him on no matter where he plays, when he plays, or who he plays for. But the nice part is, all these guys getting that opportunity, but it was still a raw deal to not see them have their name called in the NFL draft. And there's a myriad of reasons that you could point to. Guys like Tyler Batty and Connor Pay are guys who served missions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they're 24, 25, 26 years old when they enter their name into the draft. And in many respects, the guys they're going up against in that draft class are 21, 22, in some cases even just 20 years old. So there are NFL franchises who look at it and say, okay, their floor may be a little bit higher than the player who's younger than them, but the ceiling is also closer for a player of that caliber, speaking of a 24, 25, or a 26-year-old. That is why I think some of those guys get knocked down. In the case of Kalani Sitake, yeah, he had freakish athleticism, and I hope he kills it out there with Cincinnati, because it'd be awesome to see him go out there and make good. But I think that there's a question of which Kalani Sitake are you getting? Is it the 2023 version that barely could see the field and in many respects probably shouldn't have been playing? Or is he the 2024 guy who was an all Big 12 honoree? That's the bet that Cincinnati's trying to figure out for themselves. And I think that question mark lingered in the minds of NFL personnel when it came to naming these guys, or not naming these guys, having these guys drafted by his respective franchises. I also will make a bold prediction right now, though. Next year, BYU is not going to go over in the NFL draft. There is too much talent, most notably guys like Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker, among others, to have BYU aced out in the NFL draft process next year. There's just too many bodies out there. I think offensive tackle, you have guys like Isaiah Jota. They also look at a guy opposite him like Andrew Gentry. They'll be looking to make a good impression. Waylon Lapuaho on the inside of interior BYU's offensive line. He wants to go out and show things. Chase Roberts, yeah, he's a little bit older, like a Connor Pay and a Tyler Batty, but can he put together enough production that has NFL teams overlooking the fact that, yes, he'll be 24, 25 years old by the time he's a rookie at the NFL level? I like what BYU has done, because even without NFL draft picks, they have proven that they are an elite team out there. And I said it earlier on the podcast, and I'll reiterate it here. BYU is a sum total of the parts versus relying on true star power to lift them. They went 11-2 last year and did not have a single NFL draft pick. They're one of just 5 Power 4 programs out there who didn't have a draft pick last year. But I would say of those 5, they're by far the most successful. And that can be good or bad because there's a lot of returning production for BYU, but you also want to see BYU, much like Kevin Young proclaimed, he wants to make BYU an NBA factory. I know that Kalani Sitake has not been maybe that pointed about wanting BYU football to be that, but he's made it very clear that if guys want to go and play at the NFL level, he is all for it. And he will do everything within his power to support these young men in pursuing that dream. Yes, I think the BYU needs to keep developing guys and hope that at some point the tide turns a little bit and they start to hear more and more names drafted from BYU. But the bigger, I think, issue at hand is the guys who did not get drafted this year, the 8 guys here that are obviously looking at their professional opportunities, go and make good on the opportunity you've been given, whether it's at a mini camp or whether as an undrafted free agent. The odds are stacked against you. It's just the simple fact of what the NFL stands for. It is a business more so than anybody would care to admit. They are cutthroat, and they want nothing more than essentially prove themselves in their mind. Speaking of the evaluators, the front office executives, etc., they want nothing more than to feel justified in saying, yeah, that's why we didn't take that guy in the draft, and that's why he's going to be told, hey, bring your playbook up to the GM's office. A lot of guys have succeeded from BYU in recent years. We've seen a lot of really, really good draft picks and even guys who didn't get drafted who have been able to hang on in the NFL. And I hope that we have a handful of those guys come from this crop. But going forward, yeah, it would be nice to see BYU start to have guys hear their names called. Next year, it's in Pittsburgh, I believe, where the draft is. You want to hear their name called. You want to see them celebrating with their family and friends. But then beyond that, they need to go out there and prove that, yes, BYU prepared them for the NFL. It doesn't do BYU any good to have guys who flame out in the NFL. Actually, it's a detriment when guys go to the league from your program and don't do well. It actually makes NFL teams less likely to pick your guys in future drafts when they say, okay, last time we took a guy from BYU, they didn't really do much for us. And that's something you have to balance here, speaking of BYU. But I think the nice part is all 8 of these guys were big contributors to BYU's success last year. And now the guys who are at BYU right now who were part of that success last year have to pick up the baton and carry it forward here and improve upon it. I think BYU's got multiple draft picks in next year's team. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe by the time the draft comes around next year, we're doing this old song and dance on this podcast where I'm trying to opine about the fact that BYU should have more draft picks. But until they can prove themselves capable of consistently producing NFL talent, yeah, you're going to see more and more guys maybe not hear their name called over the 3 days the draft's going on, but then you hear their name in terms of the reports that they've signed a UDFA. It's called an undrafted free agent contract with a team shortly after the draft concludes. But I really do think that Kalani Sitake is doing his absolute darndest to build up what is an NFL factory, but at the same time, he's not going to do that at the detriment of losing at the collegiate level and being a competitive program for BYU at the Power 4 level, just so he can get guys into the NFL. He has proven he can get guys there. We can look at Zach Wilson. We can look at Jaron Hall as the quarterbacks who have been taken in the NFL draft. We also can look at offensive linemen like Brady Christensen. You can look at Kingsley Suamataia, who is going to go to the interior of Kansas City's offensive line this year, even though he was drafted as an offensive tackle. They have had a lot of guys drafted in recent years, and the hope is over time, the production and the reputation that BYU has, it has a better and better connotation to it when it comes to the NFL draft. There were long stretches that BYU was not an NFL destination, but now I think it is going to become that more and more, especially if BYU remains hyper competitive in the Big 12 conference. That'll be a big part of it, because if you can prove you can be competitive at that level, NFL teams will say, okay, yeah, they are proving themselves at the highest level of college football. We need to give these guys a little extra look when it comes to our evaluations. All right, so there you go. That's what I got for you guys as we look back at the draft that was. But coming up this week, we are looking at what's going on for BYU, both in football and basketball, what the futures hold for both of these programs, but also some other sports out there. There's one in particular that I am worried is being just completely overlooked by the BYU athletic administration. I'd like to be wrong, but I don't think I am. And we'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. That's what they call a tease in the business. Make sure you guys come back tomorrow to this here podcast. But as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars a part of your day. Thank you for making it your first listen of the day, in fact. And as always, thank you for being everydayers with us here. And make sure you subscribe, rate, review, share with your family and friends. Make sure everybody knows about the Locked On Cougars podcast.